Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Arctic premiers appeared before the Federal Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Relations this week. They gave their perspectives on what Canada's Arctic strategy should look like moving forward. APTN's Justin Hardy reports.
Which one is the dog that pulls the sled?
Nunavut Premier John Mayne and Northwest Territories Premier R.J. Simpson continued their talks on Arctic security. They told committee members what they need in their territories. Simpson said sovereignty is not something that can be declared, it needs to be built.
From that perspective, Canada's Arctic foreign policy is more than just a diplomatic document. It's a call for the country to meet its words with action. The government of the Northwest Territories was actively engaged in the development of Canada's Arctic foreign policy. I met several times with then Minister Jolie. My colleagues and I appreciated her efforts to meet Northerners where they're at.
Mayne reaffirmed his stance that Indigenous communities need to lead the formation of these strategies.
The Nunavut Arctic Security and Sovereignty Strategy outlines that Indigenous peoples, Inuit in our case, and inhabitants of the Arctic must be the key architects of any strategy, policy, framework, or action plan about the region.
Following the Premier's remarks, the floor was open for questions from members of Parliament. Most of their questions centered around Arctic infrastructure. Tim Watchorn, a Quebec Liberal MP, asked what the North wanted to see come out of proposed Arctic military projects.
A while ago, you talked about the dual-use project. What will your priorities be for these dual-use projects? What are your priorities for investments in the North?
Premier Simpson says he wants a balanced approach to these projects to make sure they meet the needs of both the military and communities.
If you're increasing their presence in communities, we probably need better municipal roads, an upgrade to the water treatment plant, maybe more community facilities for recreation and things like that. So that's really where I see the dual use infrastructure, as well as the things like airports, runways, and those are more the typical D&D things that they would like to see.
Mayne says talks have been good, but more needs to be discussed about what priorities lead these projects.
Is it the military interest that is the primary driver, and then the civilian is like a little thing that's tacked on the side, or is it the other way around? In terms of how we look at this, and that's where, similar to my colleague, we have been engaged in conversations with Department of National Defense on trying to understand better.
Justin Hardy, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
The governments of Canada and Nunavut made a $480 million housing announcement on Friday. At the press conference, both parties announced an agreement in principle, which will see as many as 750 new homes built in the territory. Ottawa will contribute up to $250 million for the project, with Nunavut providing the rest. 25 of the homes will be managed by Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated. The announcement was made at the Ottawa-based construction company Saivan, which will help in the building of some of the homes. Nunavut Housing Minister Cecile Nelvana Lyle had this to say.
Today's announcement is about more than just housing units. It's about ensuring that Nunavummiut can participate fully in social and economic life. It represents a measure of hope that people will have places to rest after long days, where children can study, and where families can plan a future.
After years of effort and advocacy from grieving families, the Northwest Territories Missing Persons Act is now enforceable. The act is specifically designed to help police in locating a missing person where no criminal investigation is underway. Regulations outline procedures for the way RCMP ask to access records or carry out searches, procedures and requirements for officers making emergency demands, and how people whose information has been accessed will be told. It gives police new tools like the power to urgently request a missing person's records from banks, colleges, and other institutions. The legislation has been strongly supported by families of missing people and advances a key commitment in the territory's action plan for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. We'll have more on this story next week. To Saskatoon now, where one of 3 people charged in the death of Taya Sinclair was sentenced Wednesday to 9 years in prison. Chelsea Crow was charged with manslaughter but pled guilty on January 12th to aggravated assault, and 2 counts of unlawful confinement. With time served, she will do 6 years. Sinclair was reported missing from Saskatoon in late 2022. Her body was found later in Prince Albert. 2 other people were also charged. Stephanie Halkett Stevenson pleaded guilty to manslaughter in 2024. She was sentenced to 18 years with no chance of parole for 9. Michael Smiley is charged with first-degree murder. That trial is expected to continue next week in Saskatoon. 2 people have died and 3 others have been seriously injured in a 2-vehicle collision in the Sunchild First Nation in Alberta. On Wednesday at around 8:30 p.m., Rocky Mountain House RCMP were called to Sunchild. They found 2 people deceased, with 2 more with serious injuries in one vehicle. The driver of the second vehicle was also seriously injured. The 3 injured were taken to hospital, 1 by helicopter. The dead are a 66-year-old woman from Sunchild and a 64-year-old woman from Rocky Mountain House County. There's no word on the condition of the 3 injured people. Sunchild First Nation is located about 270 kilometers northwest of Calgary. Residential school survivors in northern Saskatchewan are set to receive long-awaited restitution following a class action lawsuit against both the province and the federal government. Canada has signed a settlement agreement ahead of court proceedings. On Thursday, Secretary of State Buckley Belanger met with residential school survivors in Île-à-la-Crosse to sign a settlement agreement. Survivors of Île-à-la-Crosse will receive between $10,000 and $15,000 depending on attendance, with $10 million dedicated to healing, education, and commemoration. The 2022 lawsuit against Canada and Saskatchewan followed the school being excluded from the Indian residential school settlement. Canada signed an agreement in principle for $27 million in March 2025, while the government of Saskatchewan offered $40 million to survivors in September 2025. Court approval for the agreement with Canada is set for March 30th. The Blood Tribe is the latest to warn its citizens about travel to the United States. That story and much more still to come. Welcome back. A First Nation in southern Alberta is advising its members against all travel to the U.S. And if members do cross the border, they need to take all precautions, adding that the Jay Treaty and even Indian status cards are being challenged by U.S. border officials. In a statement posted to their website, the Blood Tribe says their citizens have been stopped and even detained by U.S. agents, including from the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE. They say Indian status cards are not being accepted as proof of blood quantum, and that additional proof like a blood quantum letter from the band is needed. Blood Leadership is also warning its members that any First Nations person going into the U.S. should also carry their long-form birth certificate, their passport, and any other provincial documentation that shows they are born in Canada. They say 1794 Jay Treaty should prevent any issues when crossing, but its effectiveness is unclear during this period of unrest. In a statement, Blood Tribe leadership added, the Blood Tribe joins with other First Nations in protesting the disregard and lack of respect being given to the Jay Treaty. We urge Blood Tribe members not to rely on the fact that we have a right to pass and repass the border freely, and to take all precautions to ensure that their ID is up to date and in their possession when traveling. The Assembly of First Nations also condemned the U.S. for not respecting inherent Jay Treaty rights for First Nations people. They also advise First Nations people to use caution and have all required documentation when crossing the border. A Gwich'in man from Nunavut in the Northwest Territories says he was temporarily detained by United States border agents last week when they demanded he produce blood quantum documentation. Harley Manakis says the detainment occurred at a Texas airport when he was traveling back to Canada with his family following an international trip. He says border agents separated him from his wife and 2 children as they were going through customs. Manakis says he was flagged because of a minor marijuana possession charge from over 20 years ago. According to him, agents told him he would need to prove he was at least 50% First Nations or be held for processing. He says agents also threatened to revoke his Jay Treaty rights, which guarantees the free passage of eligible First Nations peoples across the U.S.-Canada border. Manakis says after his First Nation was able to provide the requested documentation, he was released about 2 hours later.
More or less, if you don't need to go there, don't go there right now. Like, whatever headaches they have going on there, we just don't need to be a part of it.
Last week was filled with tension for Greenland, from a threat by U.S. President Donald Trump to take the territory by force, to a government advisory preparing people to survive at home for 5 days without power. But day-to-day life continues, as APTN's video journalist Angel Moore reports on how Greenlanders' lives go beyond politics.
I'm here at the wharf in beautiful Nuuk, Greenland. The city is bustling today as people get back to their regular lives, clearly tired of the international attention. For example, it was business as usual as locals shop for seal. Elias Ling is a former fisherman. He now works at the market. He wanted to talk about fish, not Trump. Ling says fishers are more worried about the impacts of climate change. He and other fishermen have been talking about it. They are afraid that the fish is going to disappear when the ice melts. It becomes small parts of ice, and sometimes big, so you can't even fish because of the ice. Last week, the world's eyes were on Greenland after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to take the Danish territory by force. Trump claims the United States needs Greenland for U.S. national security. Trump eventually backed down from using force and announced a framework deal. Greenland's Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, addressed Trump's plan. He said there is a high-level working group to find a solution. Nielsen was asked by a reporter if he could believe Trump would not use force to take the territory.
This is, as I said, this is about world order. This is about international law. This is about respecting territorial integrity. I believe that the world will not take that turn so drastically. I have to believe that, and I believe the Western Alliance, in a good partnership, can grow to be better.
But for Team Greenland, it's sports that's on their minds and not politics as they prepare for the upcoming Arctic Winter Games taking place in Whitehorse in March.
It's about sports. So what we're going to focus is sports and how the sport bring us joy. Mm-hmm. So it's important for us to take these things with us.
Mm-hmm. I also think that people and the whole delegation are looking forward to go there so we can have a great time together and not think about anything else. Mm-hmm.
Sport is alive and well in Nuuk. Michael Kleist and his daughter Carla catch a women's soccer game. Carla is 14 years old. She is a badminton player on Team Greenland. Michael is the president of Greenland Badminton. He says the Arctic Games and cultural events are important to celebrate.
We hope that she will enjoy and meet some new friends and take it as it is. It's a long way from here, but I know they are looking forward to it, and I know even though Carla is quiet, that she is looking forward to going as well.
Greenlanders continue to live as normal as possible despite the uncertainty. People who did not want to appear on camera said people are scared of the uncertainty. Sarah Olsey is the international chair of the Inuit Circumpolar Council. She says Trump's threat of annexing Greenland is a direct threat to Indigenous rights.
We have become the case that everybody talks about, but the change that we are seeing expressed through what is being done to our nation, Nunavut, is a change that will affect all of us all over the world as Indigenous peoples.
Talks have begun in Washington between Greenland, Denmark, and the U.S. officials over Arctic security. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Nuuk, Greenland.
The Yukon government is expanding access to healthy food in some of the territory's schools with the help of the federal government's National School Food Program. As Sarah Connors tells us, the nonprofit organization rolling out the program says while it's a step in the right direction, it doesn't match a similar program the feds cut last year.
Lunch prep is already underway at Selkirk Elementary in Whitehorse. The school has been selected to take part in a pilot project for the National School Food Program. The pilot will serve a hot lunch to 850 students across 7 Yukon schools until March 2027.
It's going to be a lot of work and dedication to make sure that every student has access to this, but if there is ever a time, it's now.
The pilot is being led by the Yukon government and delivered by the Yukon First Nation Education Directorate. The Directorate says this is the first program of its kind in the territory to offer a universal lunch.
It's taking a real step forward and getting us closer to being able to offer school food for every student.
The Yukon government says the focus now is on a phased rollout. That means collecting data and addressing logistical challenges to better understand what works and what doesn't before expanding the program further.
The things that we'll learn through that phased rollout will help shape decisions that are made for the future of the National School Food Program for the Yukon.
But gaps remain. The Directorate ran a rural nutrition program that offered a daily hot lunch as well as breakfast and snacks to 900 Indigenous children. The program helped feed vulnerable Indigenous children in rural communities experiencing food insecurity. But the Directorate was forced to cut the program last fall after the federal government decided it no longer qualified for funding under Jordan's principle. Wheelton says the pilot is a step in the right direction, but doesn't replace what was lost.
So it's able to offer lunch, but at this point in time, given the budget and the constraints, it's just a lunch program. It's not able to offer breakfast or snacks or any of those other supports.
The program is scheduled to launch in the next few months. Wheelton says when students are well fed and ready to learn, they thrive.
Nutrition is a building block for health and development. You can't learn if you're hungry.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Our French language newscast is coming up right after the show. We'll hear from host Kim Sullivan after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Colder temperatures often bring out the sun dogs, and Dave Menzies snapped this photo on a cold Manitoba day. Thanks, Dave. As always, send your pictures to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at Saturday's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, plenty of sun and -4 for Fredericton, 2 below with sunny skies for Halifax. -18 in Kuujjuaq, cloudy and 9 below for Nain. -11 for Montreal, 17 below for Chibougamau. -8 for Sault Ste. Marie, 11 below for Ottawa. Cloudy and -6 for Thunder Bay, sun's out and -7 for Sioux Lookout. -14 for Norway House and the Paw, 9 below for God's Lake. -11 for Winnipeg, snow and -2 in Dauphin. +1 for Regina and North Battleford. 0 for Meadow Lake, snow and -8 for La Ronge. In northern Alberta, -11 for High Level, 14 below for Fort Chipewyan. +2 for Edmonton, 9 above for Lethbridge. 11 above for Vancouver, +10 for Victoria. 1 above for Prince George, 0 for Smithers and Dease Lake. -27 in Old Crow, 3 below with snow for Whitehorse. -18 for Yellowknife, 19 below for Norman Wells. -24 for Sax Harbor and Fort McPherson. 17 below for Chesterfield, 28 below for Cambridge Bay. -31 for Resolute, 29 below in Arctic Bay. An incredible sight lit up the morning sky in Ontario. This was captured before dawn over Barrie. It's a phenomenon known as light pillars. They happen when ice crystals form in the atmosphere and fall horizontally. The crystals then reflect light shining up at them from street lights or other sources, creating these spectacular sights. The boys are back in town. The Hockey Night in Canada in Inuktitut crew is back.
Fans
can tune in to APTN this Saturday and listen as Pujut Kuzigak, David Niyinayonoyang, and Robert Kapfituyan deliver the second Inuktitut Hockey Night in Canada this year. The game between the New Jersey Devils and Ottawa Senators marks the second out of 3 games in Inuktitut this year before the broadcast series moves into Plains Cree. The Devils beat the Ottawa Senators 4-3 in their last game on December 9th. You can catch the game on APTN this Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the exclusive Inuktitut commentary. Well, it's time to hand it over to the host of our French broadcast, Nouvelle National, Kim Sullivan. Kim, tell us what you have on tonight's episode.
Hey Dennis, what a week in Quebec. 2 dead in Manawan, 5th femicide for 2025 in the province. So we do expand into a report on violence and potential solutions to it tonight. We also bring you the latest on yesterday's shooting in Mistassini. Members of Kitsekik had a favorable ruling about the abuse they were victim of at day school. And I have a beautiful sit-down interview with Senator Michelle Odette in her home, beating and talking, not to be missed tonight, 6:30 Eastern.
Good stuff. Thanks, Kim. You can catch the show in just a few seconds from now. We're all out of time for your APTN National News for this Friday, January 30th. See you later, January. For news anytime and more, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech. Thanks for being with us. Stick around. Kim's up next. Have a great night.